In the heart of West Africa, Nigeria opened its arms to welcome one of the most influential spiritual leaders of the 20th century, Pope John Paul II. His arrival was more than a diplomatic event. It was a moment of spiritual significance that drew together millions of Nigerians united in hope, faith, and celebration. The nation stood ready, expectant, and proud to receive a man whose message would echo far beyond his footsteps on Nigerian. His first visit in 1982 marked a truly historic moment in Nigeria's national and spiritual life. For days before his arrival, anticipation filled the air. Church bells rang, radio stations buzzed with excitement, and cities prepared to welcome a man admired across the world for his courage, compassion, and unwavering faith. When Pope John Paul II stepped onto Nigerian soil, he came not as a distant figure, but as a shepherd bringing a message of peace, unity, and hope to a nation rich in cultural diversity and deep religious heritage. He spoke to the hearts of Nigerians, calling them to embrace harmony beyond ethnic and regional lines. In Lagos, Kaduna, and Onitsha, the scenes were unforgettable. Millions poured into streets and open fields, forming seas of joyful faces. Choirs sang with thunderous energy, traditional dancers performed with vibrant color, and crowds lifted banners high into the sky. Some in English, some in local languages, all bearing messages of welcome and love. Children stretched their hands toward him, elders prayed aloud in gratitude, and entire families traveled long distances just to glimpse the pontiff. It was more than a visit. It was a celebration of faith, unity, and the shared hope of a brighter future for Nigeria. Pope John Paul II celebrated these open-air masses beneath the bright Nigerian sun, standing before millions who watched with deep reverence. His words carried across the plains and stadiums, urging the nation to stand strong in faith, unity, and harmony. Despite its challenges, he spoke with the conviction that defined his papacy, boldly reminding Nigerians of the sacred dignity of every human life. From the unborn child to the elderly, he emphasized the central role of the family as the foundation of society, a place where love, discipline, and virtue must be nurtured. And to those in authority, he delivered a message that resonated far beyond the moment. Leaders, he insisted, are called to serve with justice, humility, and truth. His voice, calm yet powerful, echoed like a moral compass pointing the nation toward peace and righteousness. He returned again in 1998, this time to the young and growing capital city of Abuja, a city symbolizing Nigeria's hopes for unity and national renewal. As his plane touched down, the atmosphere was markedly different from his first visit. The nation was navigating a period of deep political tension, uncertainty, and yearning for stability. Yet the moment the Pope appeared at the top of the aircraft steps, a quiet wave of calm seemed to settle over the land. Crowds lined the streets, not with the carefree celebration of years past, but with a deeper, more reflective anticipation. Many saw him not only as a religious figure, but as a moral voice capable of speaking truth in a delicate hour of Nigeria's history. In this charged environment, the Pope's presence brought a sense of steadiness and moral strength. His words were gentle yet firm, addressing the nation with fatherly concern. He urged Nigerians, leaders and citizens alike, to uphold the sacred respect for human rights and to defend the dignity of every person, regardless of tribe, belief, or political position. He called for reconciliation among divided groups, reminding the nation that peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice, forgiveness, and mutual understanding. With compassion and clarity, he encouraged Nigeria to embrace a peaceful transition into a future guided by fairness, democracy, and unity. Has Nigeria leaders done well in view of Pope's call of leadership? Leaders, he insisted, are called to serve with justice, humility, and truth in view of Christian killings and president intervention. That's a very important and complicated question. Short answer: no. By many accounts, Nigerian leaders have fallen far short of living up to the kind of leadership Pope John Paul II called for: justice, humility, and truth, especially when it comes to protecting Christians amid rising violence. But it's not black and white. Here's a breakdown with analysis and nuance. What the evidence shows: escalating violence against Christians. Faith leaders say that there is state complicity in religious killings. According to reports, the Nigerian government is not neutral and has struggled to protect Christian communities impartially. Vanguard News. The group Inter-Society claims that over 100 Christians have been killed in just 76 days, with many abducted by armed groups. Alliance The Yelwata massacre is particularly devastating. An estimated 100 to 200 people were killed and about 3,000 displaced. Wikipedia. According to a report cited by Atlantic Post, more than 7,000 Christians were killed between January and August 2025. Atlantic Post Fulani herdsmen attacks are frequently reported. For instance, more than 60 Christians were said to have been killed in one recent attack, Morning Star News. In another report, 15 Christians were killed in central Nigeria by herdsmen. Christian News, religious leaders' criticism of leadership. Christian leaders are demanding stronger, more decisive action. Reverend Dr. Amos Moso accused the government of failing to protect Christians and called the ongoing killings calculated, planned acts of terror. Truth Nigeria. The Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, PFN, publicly called out the government, saying the genocide against Christians must stop and urging leaders to hold perpetrators accountable. This Day Live. Faith-based groups are pushing for stronger institutions that protect freedom of religion or belief, FORB, and want the state to rise above religious favoritism. Vanguard News, government response and denials. The Nigerian government has denied that the violence is purely religious. Officials claim the killings are not targeted only at Christians, but are part of a broader security crisis involving terrorism, banditry, and criminality. Al Jazeera. Some in government argue that external actors are amplifying claims of religious persecution for political gain. Vanguard News. There are accusations of state failure. Critics say the government is not doing enough to prosecute perpetrators or reform the security architecture to protect vulnerable communities. Truth Nigeria assessment in light of Pope John Paul II's call justice. On this front, many would argue the government is failing Christians. The scale and frequency of attacks, combined with perceived impunity for attackers, suggest that justice is not being effectively enforced. Humility. It's harder to see humility in leadership when people feel neglected, marginalized, or under threat. The persistent calls from Christian bodies indicate they believe their plight is not being met with sufficient empathy or concrete action. Truth. There is a debate over how the government frames the violence, as terrorism or as religious persecution. Critics argue that minimizing the religious dimension undermines the truth of what many Christian leaders say is happening on the ground. Conclusion. Has Nigeria's leadership done well? Based on current evidence and Christian advocacy, no. There are serious concerns that the government is not living up to the moral standard Pope John Paul II advocated. That said, the situation is very complex. Insecurity in Nigeria involves terrorism, ethnic conflict, resource disputes, and more. Not just religious violence. Some of the government's denials reflect this complexity. What needs to happen? Stronger protection for vulnerable Christian communities. Transparent investigations into religious killings with prosecutions of perpetrators, institutional reforms to ensure the state is neutral and truly protects all citizens, regardless of faith. Dialogue and reconciliation initiatives that address underlying resource ethnic and political tensions, not just the religious dimension.